Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1, Virginia Morris. We warmly welcome Brigadier Singh and the accompanying Indian military delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Bulgart Primary School from Bulgart, Western Australia, and Tyndale Christian School, Strathalbyn, from Strathalbyn, South Australia. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please be seated if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Percy Walter Ellis Eyre. Percy Eyre was born on the 12th of February 1920 in Sydney, the second son of Walter and Lily Eyre. The family lived in Willoughby on the lower North Shore, and on finishing school, Percy worked as a builder's labourer in the area. In June 1941, Eyre volunteered to enlist in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. He completed his initial training in Dubbo before embarking from Sydney at the beginning of September. He arrived in the Middle East at the end of that month and continued training. In November 1941, he joined his unit, the 2nd 17th Australian Infantry Battalion. At this time, the battalion was at Camp Hill 69 in Palestine, where it was training after having been amongst the defenders of Tobruk during the siege earlier in the year. During the first half of 1942, the 2nd 17th Battalion moved to Syria and Lebanon in support of the Allied campaign against Vinci French forces in that region. In July, the battalion travelled to Alexandria, Egypt, and from there deployed west to the city in readiness for a showdown with Axis forces. The British-led Allies defended a line between the Mediterranean Sea in the north and the impassable Qattara Depression in the desert to the south. Allied units took up positions around the tiny desert locality of El Alamein. The 9th Division, of which the 2nd 17th Battalion was a member, was on the right flank of the Allied position on the coast. In October 1942, preparation began in earnest for an Allied attack. The men of the 2nd 17th Battalion trained alongside tanks and anti-tank guns, so they knew how to work together on the battlefield. There was still some time for recreation though, and the battalion diary notes that the men played cricket and held a surfing competition. On the night of the 23rd of October 1942, the Allies launched what became known as the Second Battle of El Alamein. After an artillery barrage, the men of the 2nd 17th Battalion crossed a minefield strung with barbed wire to engage German positions. While the battalion was successful in capturing and consolidating its objectives, Eyre was killed in action during the assault. He was 22 years old. Originally buried near where he died, at the end of the war, Allied graves were consolidated and Eyre's remains were reburied at El Alamein War Cemetery in Egypt, along with more than 7,000 Commonwealth and Allied burials from the Western Desert Campaign. Two of Eyre's brothers also served in the army during the Second World War. His younger brother, Gunner Walter Eyre, served in Australia. His older brother, Gunner Frederick Eyre, served in Pacific with an anti-aircraft battery and returned to Australia in 1946. Percy Eyre's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Percy Walter Ellis Eyre, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Ellis Eyre or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, we thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.